China. How are you all? We would like to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank each and every one of you for allowing this communication to occur in this way at this time through this particular gate. Each and every time our civilization is afforded an opportunity to communicate with any other civilization in this way, it is a great gift to us. For when these interactions occur, it affords us the opportunity to see, to experience through each and every one of you, individually, and all of you together collectively, that many more ways that the infinite has of expressing itself, and thus these interactions expand our understanding of the infinite. Thus it is a great gift for us that you allow these communications to take place in this way, so we thank you for this gift, first of all. We would like to begin, and we say we because we are connected. As you would say in your language, I am connected as an individual personality to many other personalities, many other consciousnesses, telepathically. So you will find that this idea of this connection, this telepathic connection with many different beings, may translate into your language in the plural. And this is the reason why you will thus hear from time to time such ideas as we and us in place of I and me. But this idea should come, we perceive, as no surprise, especially now in what we understand to be the country that the channel is in. For many of you are used to the concept of the royal we. Therefore, we will simply continue with the understanding that there will be no confusion in it, and we will simply begin as follows. We are now given to understand that the particular subject, the particular purpose of this particular communication on this day of your time has to do with the phenomenology that many of you have labeled on your planet to be the glyphs, the forms that will appear in your crops. The idea, of course, as you all know, that they have evolved quite a bit beyond the concept of being simple circles, and so it would seem perhaps inappropriate to label them now as such. But glyphs we will use, forms we will use, and many other ideas that will perhaps translate into your language in a more appropriate fashion. Many of you now have been investigating and researching this phenomenology now for quite some time of your time, as you know time to exist. There is, we will say, distinct communication involved, as is no surprise to all of you. But we know that one of the paramount questions that you have in your mind is who is involved, where do they come from, what is behind it, and perhaps why, from time to time you may ask, why is this happening at all? The idea, first and foremost, and of course you must understand this will not be the whole idea, but we will never give you the whole idea. We would never want to take away from you your ability for your investigations to reveal unto you the things that are important for you to discover for yourself, for your own growth, your own spiritual growth, your own intellectual growth. We will never do it for you. We will help. We are glad to help. We are glad to be invited to help, to participate, to join you, to play along. But we will never do it for you. We respect you too much for that. We respect ourselves too much for that. Because this is, above all, an equal interaction. We may have evolved in a different way. We may have, in many ways, solved many of what you call the problems that your planet is facing now, but nevertheless, you are no less than us. We are no greater than you. We are different. We are other. But we are equal. So first and foremost, please understand that our point of view is simply our point of view, and this is nothing but a dialogue of friends. At least, we assume this to be the case. So, we will give you our perspective as we look at your world, as we look at your reality, to view this phenomenology you call the glyphs, and we will give you what we see from our realm, from our dimension of reality, knowing that this must be, by definition, an interpretation, because we are not in your reality experiencing them directly. Although we will, as you say in your language, let the cat out of the bag by revealing that from time to time, we may be somewhat peripherally involved in some of the construction of some of those glyphs, but not all. Not all, and by far not most. You will find that there are what you have called extraterrestrial involvement in many of the ideas of the creation of the glyphs, but as we have already pointed out, this is a participatory phenomenology, and you are all involved as well, not just as researchers after the fact of the creation of a glyph. No, you are involved from our point of view in the creation of the glyph as well. Your consciousness is involved, your energy is involved, your spirituality is involved in a very real way. You must understand, as our perspective sees it, this is a collective phenomenon. We are all participating in the creation, or at least, shall we say more specifically, more precisely, the allowance of such things to occur. And again, what we give you is only part of the whole, not the whole picture. There is something very important, however, to understand behind the why that this is happening. And it doesn't mean it is an empirical why, the ultimate why, but just one of the whys in terms of its effect upon you all. There is a principle within evolution that, perhaps for lack of a better term, we have translated into your language as the watermelon seed principle. We understand that you have this fruit that has this seed, and we understand that when you take one of these seeds, being that they are very small and very slippery, and you press them between your thumb and forefinger, they will have a tendency to shoot out quite quickly. The idea is thus: when something, the seed, or an entity, a consciousness, a being, is pressed, as you say, between a rock and a hard place, it must go somewhere. It must move somehow. The idea being that when two apparently opposing forces, the thumb and the forefinger, bear down upon the seed or bear down upon the being, it may not be able to go down, it may not be able to go up. And so it goes the only way it can go, off in a new direction, to the side, perpendicular, in a sense, to the way it went before. Looking at new things, seeing things in new ways. And thus, behind the phenomenology of the glyphs, there is this principle. You are given a puzzle that many of you feel you must try to solve. It mesmerizes, it attracts, it magnetizes you. Some of you it may upset. But the idea is that you feel compelled, many of you, to understand, to know, to solve. What does it mean? To glean, to extract some idea, some meaning, some purpose behind this experience. And yet, it is removed from you in many ways. You cannot yet see them being formed. You don't know what is happening, exactly how it's happening. It is hidden from you. It is, in that sense, in the ancient terminology, occult. In that you don't know. It is in the dark. And yet you are compelled to search, compelled to look, driven, as it were, many of you. And so these two opposing forces, something you must solve that right now you absolutely can't solve, bends your mind in new directions and helps you see things in ways you perhaps never thought to see before, because you have no choice but to explore and experiment with directions you hadn't considered previously, because the old paradigm simply will not work. You must understand that this is not only an effect, it is one of the intentional reasons layered into the creation of the glyphs by the makers. And if you will remember what we have discussed only a moment ago, you, in a way, are part of the overall energy of what you euphemistically call the makers. So you, in many ways, are also doing this to yourselves. You are giving yourselves a conundrum, a puzzle, a paradox, an enigma. You are luring yourselves with signs and seals. You are giving yourselves communications from the soul, from the deep psyche, symbolism, non-verbally, so that you will avoid the idea of over-intellectualizing and drive yourselves from the heart, from the spirit, from inside. You are giving these signposts to yourself, but not understanding exactly how to read them. You force yourself to look at them in new ways, upside down and inside out, backwards and forwards. And of course, as you now know, spinning them round and round, as many of you have seen or heard of now. This is a very, very, very important thing to do. As you understand the physical reality, many of you understand that it is based on spirals in terms of growth, what you have called mathematically the Fibonacci series, and many other different kinds of mathematical ratios that represent the patterns of growth in nature. And thus the crop circles, in that sense, as you say, are no different. The idea being that they exhibit these vibrational patterns, they exhibit these mathematical qualities that are contained in your very psyche, in your structure, in your body, in your soul, in your energy. And thus, by containing these same vibrations, they resonate. They, as you say, strike a chord within you that impels you to gravitate, to magnetize toward them, to seek them out, and to understand them. For you know innately, somehow, that by understanding more and more of the glyphs, of the circles, as you say, you will understand to some degree more of yourselves, which is true. But I also put it to you in reverse. Anything that you do to take the opportunity to understand more of yourselves holistically, integrally, holographically, will also help you understand more about the glyphs. Anytime you can incorporate within yourself more of an expression of totality, you will thus be more capable of understanding any expression of totality. Because you, as well as the glyphs, are, in that sense, holographic, holistic. Even though there may be separate glyphs, just as there are separate individual beings, people, on your planet and on other ones, still each and every one, in a sense, contains all the information of the whole. Those you have seen, those you are seeing now, those that are yet to come. Again, both the glyphs and the people. And any being, any spirit, any form of consciousness, this is true for. It is all holographic in that sense. The idea of holographic being, as you know, that when you look at a small portion, you have the ability to understand within that small portion something greater, something bigger, something that connects you to the infinite. And in that way, each and every single glyph, no matter what configuration it has taken, does really only represent a thin slice, a thin shadow of something very much more multidimensional that perhaps at first you cannot visually perceive, cannot see with your eyes, but all of you know you have the ability to sense with more of yourself. In the same way that you know, walking upon the ground and seeing your shadow, you know that the shadow you see upon the ground that appears so flat and two-dimensional is only one side of the shadow that is three-dimensional, that actually stretches from your body to the ground. It is a solid form in that sense, a dimensional form, but rarely do you see any portion of it other than that which is upon the ground. Similar are the glyphs to this idea. They are bigger than you see them, and many times what you may see as an imprint in the ground, so to speak, in the crop, so to speak, is but a thin slice through the entire shape that is really there in energy, in a template form, in a blueprint form. The idea, of course, is that many of you have begun to realize this and have begun to extrapolate what those other forms might be, understanding that the glyphs you see on the ground might, in a sense, be collapsed shadows that, when unfolded mathematically, when understood holographically, might reveal unto you greater forms, greater shapes that will allow you to see doorways and gateways and connections to other dimensions of reality and other experiences of the infinite that are all accessible from right in that one spot at that time. As has been pointed out to you, These are, in a sense, being created to be places. They are very much the idea of a gate, of a door, of an access terminal, if you will, to utilize your present-day technological terminology. They are, in that sense, if you wish, then the ultimate internet, if you wish to put it that way. They are your own, very own versions on Earth of the computer terminals of the interstellar, intergalactic, infinite internet. They are your way of communing with all that is, which is our terminology for what you may call the God consciousness. They are slices of the whole. They are bits and pieces, mirrors, doorways, angled this way and that, to give you a perspective of a different edge, a different side, a different point of view of the infinite. All the different interpretations that you may come up, that truly are created from your own imagination and intuition, all the interpretations you put on them, all the meanings that you put on them are all true, because they are all holographic. And holographic means that there is no one way, but that every way is a part of the whole, another aspect, another direction of the whole, another way to understand the whole from your unique perspective. Just like a mirror that you hold up to your face, and in that mirror perhaps catch a glimpse of what is behind you in the background in that mirror, but then change the direction and see a different angle of your face, and a different background then reflected to you from a different point of view. Such are also the glyphs, to be used in that way as mirrors, to catch a different glimpse of your psyche, of yourself, of your ability to relate to the universe as a whole, or to yourself as a portion of the universe. You can use them reflectively in that way. And also, as has been pointed out, just to, in your terms, recap, it is also very, very, very impactful to understand them literally as blueprints, to literally move through them, to walk through them. This is like turning a key. Literally. You must understand, each and every one of you, as a physical being, is like an electromagnetic conductor, like a little battery. You are immersed in the electromagnetic field of your planet. As you move through the electromagnetic field of your planet, different kinds of energy fields are set up that do different things and have different effects. Many of the glyphs are designed specifically so that if you move in those ways, you are literally in sequence creating an electromagnetic energy field of certain types, sometimes enforced, sometimes canceled out, that will generate a specific sequence of unlocking of your own higher dimensional self, so that you are creating more connection to all of yourself on different levels as you already exist on those different levels. It is specifically designed to do that, so that the sequence of motion and angle of direction will literally face you more directly into the greater self that you are, and when you finish winding up the walk, tracing the entire glyph, depending on the glyph, you will thus literally have access more of yourself at that moment. You will have the ability, if you are willing to be sensitive to it, to realize that you now have coexistence, conscious coexistence on many different levels, many different realms, are standing literally in a doorway, a gateway to many different dimensions, and at that moment, I will tell you a little secret. When you wind yourself up like that, to that level of vibrational resonance, that level of energetic frequency, not only do those other realities that are heretofore invisible to you begin to become more visible to your senses from time to time and over time, but you become more visible to other realities as well, more accessible to them as well, and they can have more ability to access and communicate your reality, and specifically with you. It is, as you say, a two-way street in that sense. It is never just one way. So as you make yourself more available to yourself, You make yourself more available to more of creation. And these blueprints are literally like foundation lines for structures that you can follow that will unlock many aspects of you, just like keys open doorways. Another idea is to really literally look at them as foundations for structures. For again, as you all know, they do carry within them specific phi ratios, Fibonacci mathematical unfoldment ratio. And if you were literally to take some of these outlines and were to copy the exact dimensions in architectural form, in structural form, out of certain natural materials, and allowing certain chambers to be of certain dimensions that are all based on those ratios, you would find these buildings to be so purely resonant that in many cases just walking inside them would absolutely evoke a transcendental experience automatically from those that are sensitive enough already to perceive that. Utilize this information in that way. It is there for you to do so. It is there for you to use in whatever way, shape, or form, as we have said, that your imagination and intuition and your spirit so desires. They are your version of the cosmic gate that exists in many different ways and many different worlds, and are the product of the collective consciousness, not only of each world, but of all the worlds together, collectively. These are your calling cards. These are your admission slips. These are your badges that admit you to the idea of the councils and the associations and the collectives and the federations. These are your vouchers. These are your passes. If you use them in that way, you will find that you yourselves will be activating the invitation to others like myself from other levels and other dimensions, who will be more than willing to participate with you in many different kinds of explorations of self and of reality and of the multiverse. Use them in that way. They are there for you. You are already granting yourself permission to become members and citizens of the universe, to behave as such, to act as such, to access what you need, and to apply what you need on your world to make the changes that you want to make. These are glyphs that are helping do this because they help you understand more of who you really are at heart, at the core of your being, and thus can, when you know that, apply more of that understanding outwardly through the personality of your being, which after all is really nothing more than a projection, a construct created of your consciousness, expressing itself through the medium of physical reality. Many of the glyphs have some specific interpretation that can be had. Again, the interpretations you may come up with may not be the only ones, and the one that we will give you now as an example is not the only one. We will leave it to you to use your equally powerful imagination to understand it in your own way, for in understanding it in your own way, that is what makes it more correct for you. Because your imagination vibrationally is keyed to you specifically and will give you the specific interpretation of the glyph that will work best for you. So please do not spend time warring with each other about the accuracy of this interpretation and that interpretation. All the interpretations are true because each interpretation is specifically designed to work for unique little you. Unique. Unique. Universe. Universe. You are your own unique universe, and everything you perceive in it is designed for your perception of it. It's specifically keyed to your frequency, and this is the essence and the beauty of the holographic structure, in that the whole is contained in the parts, and in each part is access to the whole. So each and every one of you have a unique bent, a unique perspective on these things, and together all form the truth of what each and every one of these glyphs may mean, or the meaning that you may choose to assign to them. So with all of that in mind, we thus will share with you one interpretation of one particular glyph, just to give you an understanding of how these things can be viewed. can be viewed. The reason we will choose this particular glyph, which you have labeled Barbary Castle, the trinary formation, is because it is one of the few, the very few, again reminding you that this is a collective event, one of the very few that my civilization specifically had some involvement in energetically in helping to design with all of you and others for very specific reasons of our choosing, but that doesn't mean they have to be the only reasons you get out of it. As you say, the Barbary Castle formation is, generally speaking, a triangular layout with different kinds of attachments to it, so to speak. Look at it this way, if you will. We give you this foundation first so you will see some of the analogy. As we have already said, your physical consciousness, your personality is a structure, a presentation, a mask, if you will, by which you present yourself as physical beings. It is a translation of an aspect of your soul, your physicalness. Physical personality is composed of three basic components: beliefs or blueprints, emotions or energy in motion, and thought patterns and actions, similar to the idea of the blueprint of a house, the belief, the builders of a house, emotion, and the building materials out of which the house is constructed, thought patterns and actions or behavior. Look at Barbary Castle in that way. The idea being that you have a trinary structure, a tetrahedral structure, multidimensionally speaking, that is a very foundational geometric form of physical reality in one context. Tetrahedrons and spirals, the idea of the foundational template and the growth factor that creates more from the foundation, that transmutes alchemically, so to speak, if you wish, the foundational tetrahedral geometric structure into all forms known in physical universal reality. This is the basic idea behind the central tetrahedral structure. It is the basic template, the basic blueprint of physical reality as an underlying structure geometrically. It contains every possible interpretation of scientific and mathematical principle that you can understand in physical reality. The tetrahedral structure and the spiral. Together, that is all the equation you need to understand every physical principle. If you will look at it from a geometric point of view, you will see an interpretation in those forms of every principle you know or will come to know in your reality. But the three-way idea of personality is there as well. What you call on one corner, on one point, the open circle, with the line therein, the beginning, the belief, the open statement from which all things come, and then the circle with the bent curving spokes like a wheel, the emotion, the propeller, the motion, turning, moving, the spiraling, spinning principle of action and activity that takes the blueprint and begins to activate all of its ideas, all that it contains. And then what you call the ratchet, the idea of the actions you take, the motions you take, the behavior of your personality, the thought patterns, the actions, in that sense, that you physicalize, that you manifest. Going back to and coming from out of the dot at the center again. Showing the completion of the idea that this creates a complete circuit, if you will. A complete circuit of an idea that you can go into, you can spiral into, and simultaneously spiral out from. For it is always in those two directions that all of these are created. The energy, in that sense, of the electromagnetic field of your planet that is manipulated and utilized by various ways and means to create the glyphs themselves is always the product of a spiraling in and a spiraling out energy simultaneously. That's why they can be formed out of the electromagnetic field manipulation. This does not say exactly how this is done yet, but this is the medium, the palette in that sense, the canvas, the paint, if you will, that is utilized. The medium is the electromagnetic field, and it is manipulated in a variety of ways. Were it not that there is a spiraling in and a spiraling out simultaneously, forming this polarization, well, your crops would not last too long. You would have conflagration in the field, fires breaking out everywhere because of the accelerated energy. We would not really want to do that to you. The idea, therefore, is to understand that these things are perfectly balanced so as to create the impression without causing damage to the medium, the canvas itself of the crop. This leads to another understanding. Not in all cases, but in many cases, there are what you have referred to as the smaller nearby circles, the great shot, as it were. Many of these are what we call polarization, stabilization points that allow us to create a balance, a resonant polarized balance, so that the glyph itself may be of one spiraling, polarized magnetic energy, but the idea of the small circle will act as a balancing point, a stabilization point of its opposite energy, so there will not again be the burning of the fields in that way. This is why some of those great shot appear, because they are anchor points in a sense, concentration points in a sense. You will find that a variety of other phenomenology is connected specifically to the great shot as well. Sometimes you will perceive the idea of small glowing spheres of light. These are the concentrations of the electromagnetic field, the beginning of the manipulation of the energy to direct it, to focus it. They are, in a sense, like energy probes. They are focusing points of consciousness. Concentrated consciousness, electromagnetically expressed. They will, when focused in the atmosphere, cause very often these ball lightning-like phenomenologies of floating lights. And sometimes these concentrations start in the ground, deep in the ground, underneath what you call the great shot, or sometimes underneath the major portion of the glyph, and therefore sometimes, because of the concentration of energy under the ground, will sometimes, not always, but sometimes, have the effect of concentrating the minerals in the ground into a concretation, so that sometimes underneath the great shot and sometimes underneath the majority of the glyph, you will find very concentrated mineral deposits in the ground, perhaps generally speaking about, in your terms, 1 meter down. This will be one of the phenomenologies that some of you will discover, although we would recommend a high degree of respect and that you do not go around digging up all the fields to look for them. But you will find some of them when and where it is appropriate that they ought to be found in terms of your timing of your discovery of these things. They will contain concentrated vibrations of the energy used to create that particular glyph. They will contain the signature frequency of that particular glyph. Thus, they can be utilized in a variety of ways as well. But again, please do not covet them in that sense. Share them, pass them around, play with them, experiment with them, explore with them. They are not precious jewels in that sense, although they will perhaps aid and assist as one more tool, one more way that will open the precious gems that are each and every one of you. You are the jewels in the crown, and all of the glyphs, ultimately, no matter what may be happening at any given moment with them, no matter what specific interpretation may be had at any given time with them, all of them, from our understanding, and from our communion with some other portions of consciousness that are also involved in their creation, in their co-creation, is that in total, as we have said, the purpose, the primary reason, is that each and every one of you understand yourselves better, understand yourselves more deeply, and allow that understanding to change your frequency so that each of you become a walking glyph, a walking Kabbalah, a walking template, a walking Merkabah. All of the structures you may call Kabbalistic, the tree of life, the Merkabah, the Star of David, any such geometric underlying form, in our ancient language translated into the term, the bones of God. The glyphs are the shadows of the bones of God, the underlying template, the foundational structure, the mathematical resonance of the physical existence of reality itself. See them as such, and use them as such, and you will become more transparent to yourself, be able to perceive your own template structures, your own personality structures more clearly, allow them to remain in balance more often, in harmony with each other more often, so that you can see all of yourselves as one large glyph, one large template, one large pattern that gives rise to more growth, more expansion, more evolution, more ascension, more acceleration, more communion, more interaction. It is only because of the fact that you are willing to explore and expand that you radiate the invitation to us to communicate with all of you this way at this time. We have only responded to the energy that you have given off by the way you have allowed, keyword, allowed yourselves and your vibration to be changed by your interaction with the glyphs. For they cannot change you against your will. You must be willing. You must be allowing to be changed, to change yourselves, and they can help do that for you. But only when you have granted yourself permission to move toward the unknown, to allow the unknown to be your friend. For it is only, paradoxically, in the unknown that you will discover yourselves, your true core selves. Do not be afraid of the unknown. The unknown only contains more of you, as it always will. More of your version of the infinite, more of your expression of all that is. So do not fear the unknown. Invite it in. Dive into it, as it were. Grasp it firmly. And honor it and respect it as you honor and respect yourself. The unknown is where everything is. Everything, all that is, exists. And paradox, anytime you start dealing with paradox, you know you are close to the discovery of the truth of your core essence. For all paradox comes from the center. That which may seem to be polarized, that which may seem to be dichotomous, that which may seem to be opposite, must have its origin in the center, where all things begin, where all things come from, and where all things go back to. Paradox is your friend as well. So again, when you experience paradox, you do not have to be confused in a negative way. When you head for the unknown, you do not have to be afraid in that sense. Become excited. Oh, joy! Paradox. Oh, joy, the unknown. In our ancient civilization, we had a saying. When an individual said, you know, things are not going as I expected, we immediately say, congratulations. For then you are really on the path of self-discovery, for only in the unexpected will you find your true self. Only in the unknown do you really exist. Everything else, in that sense, is real, but projection, illusion. Doesn't mean it is not real while you're experiencing it, but only in the unknown can you really be what you really are. So by going deeper into the unknowingness, the mystery of the glyphs, only then will you really understand the glyphs, and understanding very often has very little to do. We are not discounting it, we are not excluding it, but in terms of being only this, understanding has very little to do with only intellectualizing and measuring. Understanding is experiencing, is knowing, is being, and then expressing that knowing, expressing that being in thought, word, and deed, in belief, emotion, and action, and making a difference in your world by example, by becoming a walking glyph. You radiate a frequency all around you at a certain pitch that lets others know they can also choose, if they wish, to reflect that as well, to be that as well, to be themselves as well. Mirrors of the soul, bones of God, whatever you wish to label them is up to you. But they are shadows of portions of you. You are involved in their co-creation, as well as others, who are more than joyful to participate in this with you. This foundation is what we have to say for now. We will, at this time, invite co-communication and ask you, in the sharing, in return for the gift that you are giving to our civilization and allowing us to communicate through this gate at this time in this way, how, at this time, may we now be of service to you? You may begin with sharing and communication in whatever fashion you so desire. Speak up and be bold.
Good evening, Bashar, and welcome to England.
And to you, good day. We thank you for the invitation, although I am not in your England, but I understand the sentiment.
I would like to ask you about the large...
One moment. Speak up and be bold so that all may hear the gift you have to share. Use your technology more boldly.
Is that better?
Much.
I would like to ask you about the large formation which appeared at Stonehenge.
Yes.
There were many unusual features about this formation, which were more to do with its circumstance, its timing, its openness, its availability, and its publicity.
Yes.
Which leads me to feel that there has been some energetic shift.
Yes. Remember, first of all, before you continue, if I may interrupt you for a moment, just like the idea of what you call astrology, just as an analogy, the glyphs, in that sense, are not something that precede the shift in consciousness within you. It follows the shift in consciousness. It is a reflection of the shift in consciousness. Now that you can allow yourselves to understand more, be more open, accept more information, thus then you get the response that is representative and symbolic of your ability to know more. And in astrology, just as the planets do not rule you, do not control you, but the timing of their conjunctions reflects the timing of the conjunctions and accelerate for you, and the degree to which you have decided you will expand is thus reflected in the omens and the auguries that you see around you, because physical reality, literally, this is not a metaphor, this is not a philosophy, this is not an analogy. Physical reality is literally a mirror. There is no out there. It is a mirror reflecting what is in here. Just like a physical glass mirror, you know the reflection is not really over there. The only reason you can see the reflection is because all the light is bouncing back to you and is right here. So physical reality is that reflection. You are being bounced back to yourself in a certain configuration, such as the specific idea of the glyphs, that reflects to you at that moment the expression on your so-called spiritual face. So you can see where you're at, so to speak. You can see how far you've come. You can see how much more you understand of yourself and how much more you are willing to understand. Yes, your feeling in that sense is correct. They are after the fact of the threshold shift. Yes. Do continue.
Thank you. It seems definitively then that with our own participation, a glyph has arrived under circumstances which signals very strongly a step towards an improved acceptance at last of this phenomenon. And what I'd like to ask you is, when are we going to get the next big one?
All right. One moment. Number one. Understand that when you talk about the concept of acceptance of the phenomenon, you must also understand that from one point of view, as I know you do, but I will repeat it anyway, it is not about the idea that people must accept the phenomenon. If you want to accept it, it will work for you and it will allow you to do many amazing things within yourself, but only if you choose to accept it. It doesn't have to be accepted by anyone. You understand? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes.
Thank you. Secondly, as you say, part B. Look to the window of what you would call approximately, as it stands now, as the energy stands now, as we perceive it to be unfolding now. Somewhere in and around what you would call your 8th month of counting, somewhere in and around what you would call your 17th to 19th day, and also on the 23rd and 27th day of said month as well. Look to those time frames now as the most likely for the possibility of the co-creation of what you call big one. I trust you understand you are applauding yourselves. Does this specifically address your question?
More specifically than I had hoped for.
We thank you then.
Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent.
Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Good day. I would like to ask, on behalf of myself and my colleagues in the Planetary Aid Network, and I guess on behalf of all of us, what advice and guidance would you give us from your perspective of how we can help our planet in its present precarious state? And what can we do to introduce the spiritual principles back into the mass majority consciousness where they seem to have been lost?
Oh, why thank you. On the whole of us, I will answer thus. The idea being, to some degree, what we have already shared with you. The important thing to understand is that the greatest change to the whole comes with the greatest change to each part. Because the part is the whole. So when each and every one of you allows yourself to become most spiritual, which is simply saying most balanced, behaving in a most holistic way, in a most integrated way, you each act as a small, so to speak, resonance capacitor resonant radiator of the proper frequency to, by example, show others how they can live their lives in joy, in love, in creativity, in imagination, in profound expression. And by your individual example of doing the things physically, going and doing the things physically, that to you represent the idea of positive action, then you function as the appropriate and proper example to allow others to see how it can be done, and they can choose thus to express themselves in their own unique style, in like form, in like mind. Wherever you know there is imbalance, as you have created many imbalances on your planet, allow yourself to thus reach into your imagination and creativity and see how it can be balanced and brought back into its most natural state. This is always the place to begin, both with yourselves and your world. Rather than in any way, shape, or form, shall we say, over-remedying yourselves in any situation that may call for the concept of balance and correction, always begin by bringing yourself back to the most natural state you can. Thus, then, you will understand, as we know you do, that the systems that are most natural work automatically in harmony with every other system. There can be no conflict by definition when each and every piece of the whole is actually being its fullest self, its most natural self. Every piece is naturally designed by the infinite to work harmoniously with every other piece. But only does this happen when each piece is allowed to be its natural self. So when individuals are taught to behave and to function outside what they know in their hearts is their true being, when they are attempting to be someone they are not, when they are doing things in what they know in their heart of hearts is unnatural for them, going against the grain, no pun intended, allow yourself then to understand that simply by coming back into a more natural expression of self, will you automatically blend and harmonize with anyone else doing so as well. And that all of the conflict, and all of the opposition, and all of the strife, and all of the difficulty that you experience on your planet, it all comes from resistance to the natural self, from being who you are not from being who you really are. There can be no conflict when you allow yourself to be who you really are and function as a shining example that others can choose, not that they have to, but that they can choose to be themselves as well. And when they do, guaranteed by creation will support you in being your natural self, because that's what it is designed to do. So, by analogy, you have on your planet what you call a picture puzzle made of many little puzzle pieces. Each one of those puzzle pieces has a specific shape. Only by being that shape will it fit in the hole it was designed for, and by fitting in the hole it was designed for, will it help the whole picture be created. If any one little puzzle piece all of a sudden decided, I don't like my shape, I must not be the shape I was made to be, I must try to be another shape, it will no longer fit when it was designed to fit, and it will no longer help the whole picture become whole, and thus the whole picture will not be able to support the individual puzzle pieces, even as the individual pieces support the whole picture. Get the picture? Does that answer your question specifically enough?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bashar, it's very thrilling to me to hear your perspective.
Good day, good day.
Good day, good evening, good life.
Whatever time you wish it to be. It is daytime where I am.
It seems to me that what you're suggesting is that perhaps we take our energy off figuring these things out, where they come from, and even off of being concerned about how many people understand the phenomenon, and put our energy on using these glyphs as tools and as gateways, as you say, to use them for our development.
Yes, however, I am not saying that you cannot measure them if measuring them is representative of your highest joy.
Excellent.
The most important thing to remember, at least from our point of view, is that whatever is representative, whatever actions and behavior are representative within integrity of your highest excitement, that is the thing to do. Because that energy, what you call excitement, is specifically keyed to your natural vibration. Excitement is your physical translation of who you are. So if you will thus follow your excitement and do what you are urged by your excitement to do, you will be doing the most natural thing for the whole picture you can do as an individual. If that means measuring them because that's what excites you more than anything else, then by all means whip the rulers out. If it means simply standing in the midst of them, or looking at the images from afar, or spinning them, or rotating them, or doing whatever your imagination comes up with, that is the most exciting thing for you to do at that moment, then that is the thing to do at that moment. If in the next moment your imagination and excitement say something else is more exciting, do that thing. Because following excitement is following the thread. Following excitement is following the path of the glyph within you. Excitement is the vibration, and this will in some senses sound like an analogy, and to some degree it is. But to some degree it is also literal, so pay attention to this. The energy of excitement is what helps create the glyphs. The combined energy of intention is what we all are capable of using like a magnifying, focusing mirror to help focus the energy of the electromagnetic field in the creation of the glyphs physically on the planet of your being. Intention, excitement, is all the same idea. It is that frequency, that pitch, that is most you. Most your natural self. So by all means, however you wish to express that at any given moment, yes, that's the thing to do. Does that answer your question?
I haven't asked my question yet.
So all right. Then by all means, do so if you wish.
I do appreciate your response. Building on it, I wonder how we can, after incorporating our enthusiasm and excitement and pursuing all of these very positive directions that we've already been taking, how can we go beyond that to use the tools as gateways?
The idea, again, first of all, is to understand that the only reason that new inspiration and new ways to use these things may be invisible to you is that you may not yet be perfectly in the energy of your excitement. When you are, and this goes for anything, perfectly within the energy of your highest excitement, that state of being automatically brings you more capability of seeing what was heretofore invisible as more ways, more opportunities to be inspired to utilize these things. So the use goes hand in hand with the state you are willing to be in, and the closer to the level of your purest excitement you are, the closer you are to being inspired to use them in different ways. You follow?
Oh, absolutely.
Does that help you?
Absolutely, very much so. It confirms the idea that we should take our energy off the controversy and off the argument and just put it into...
Unless that's what excites you.
All right.
Now, we don't mean any judgment by this, but we absolutely know from our observation of your species that many of you are more excited about arguing than anything else. And that's all right if that's what you want to do. But do understand that if that's what you're doing, then that's what you're choosing to do, and you can only get the results that come with that state of being because that's the kit you're using. So, no judgment upon it. Argument is one way of expressing yourself. Controversy is one valid way that creation exists, because if it weren't valid, it wouldn't exist. But the idea to simply understand is to take the onus off, take the charge off the idea of anything you do by understanding that whatever it is you do, controversy or ecstasy is your choice to do, and if you know you're consciously doing that, then you can only expect to get out of that whatever is germane for that particular avenue of expression, and that's all you really need to understand. Does that help?
You are too kind.
Well, I thought perhaps we were just kind enough, but thank you.
Bashar, I would like to ask you...
One moment. What happened to hello and good day?
Bashar, good evening.
And you, greetings as well.
Welcome to our realm.
Thank you.
Bashar, I have a very simple question to ask you.
Is that your way of asking me to keep the answer short?
The question is two parts.
Oh, what?
Which is, why are we in Great Britain, and in particular this southern part of the country, blessed with the appearance of this phenomenon known as crop circles?
Yes. And part two?
And why is the country which is formerly known as Gaul, and which contains as many megalithic and neolithic sites as this part of the world, maintaining crop circle silence?
Oh, what? Thank you. Part A. There is, in a sense, a lineage to this phenomenology. You must understand that even though there may be many of what you may call monolithic and or sacred sites in many different portions of your planet, there is a particular activation sequence that is important. Just as there are a sequence of presentation of crop circles, there is an importance to the activation sequence of where or when they may appear, and specifically as they are designed to appeal, shall we say, to a particular type of energy vibration, or what you may call mentality, or what you may call disposition. The idea is that there are many different kinds of phenomenology that are equivalent to the crop circles that are appearing around your planet, but the idea of the glyphs are germane to your particular area because of the historical lineage of what you call the ancient civilization of Atlantis. The circles and the glyphs were very important there and were understood very scientifically as that which might be now looked at almost as a type of energy circuitry. The idea is that they were understood as mathematical energy patterns that were utilized in a variety of functions to evoke a variety of states and even literally a variety of technological effects. In what you call the destruction of Atlantis, there were those historically on your planet that attempted to safeguard and maintain and carry on the idea of some of the ancient knowledge after the destruction. A large contingent of those well-versed in what you would typically call the priesthood, if you wish, just to use a label, that were very familiar, very learned, very scholarly in these things, migrated to what you call your England Isle, and eventually evolved into what you recognize as the Druidic factions, as the ancient Celtic faction, that preserved the knowledge of these ancient forms and ancient rituals, but they were kept in hiding, preserved, safeguarded for many, many, many years of your counting, so as to ensure and make sure that they could not be used in a negative way, that they could not be corrupted in that sense, and thus they were lost into antiquity, and only now preserved in ancient format in some of the mazes, in some of the configurations and the carvings, and in some of the ancient lore that does exist on your planet, and some ancient lore that is yet to be found, that is still locked away in certain chambers and caches upon your planet that will be found in the appropriate time. But it is specifically that because of that energy and the spirits having passed into spirit from physical life that has maintained a vigilance in this area and helped build up a resonance so that once again the energy, the knowledge of what you call ancient Atlantis can begin to spread throughout the world from a variety of sources, and from your particular area on your planet in that specific way to bring back that specific kind of knowledge, that specific attribute of the overall knowledge that has been preserved around your planet in a variety of ways, in many of the different sacred sites. In what you call your ancient Gaul, your French province, if you will, there are now the ideas of different understandings, different incorporations of mentality and spirituality, different rates of comprehension. There will be a different kind of presentation, even though there may be some glyphs that will appear around the planet. Each locale will have its own, shall we say, stronghold, its own forte of expression in that sense. Each will have its own unique style of bringing back one nugget, one component, one puzzle piece of the whole picture of the ancient knowledge that now, at this time of transition and transmutation upon your planet, is the time for the recollecting of all that knowledge. But you, all of you, loosely, some more specific than others, but generally, all of you in your area are the Druid faction of Atlantis that safeguarded that particular way of expressing the knowledge of all that is. The holographic knowledge, that scientific knowledge that has to do with the deep understanding of relationship, of form in physical reality, and invocation, as is expressed in the ancient ritualistic now term of magic rites, Merlin energy, the idea of magic chants, ancient feminine Wicca rituals, natural rituals in that sense that evoke tonality, mathematical vibrational relationship and ratio, which is all inscribed in what you call the crop glyphs. It is all there, all the tonality. They can be rendered into tones, you know, and to do so would create very, 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 very powerful resonant vibrational atmospheres. Again, like the architecture we described earlier, if anyone is immersed in the tonality that is representative of the glyphs, they will, in that sense, allow themselves to have a vibrational auditory template that will allow them to change their energy to match that frequency, and in so doing be more representative of their ideal state. And also, in that state you tap into ancient knowledge that exists in what you call the Akashic realm, that is accessible by many different avenues and gateways. Well, by the way, is this answering your question?
Thank you, Bashar.
Is that sufficient?
It will do for now.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, just to, as you say, finish up, you will begin to see that each and every, now what you call nation on your world, will begin to come up with a different way of expressing a piece. Just as you are discovering different kinds of things where there are your ancient Egyptian pyramids and sphinx, just as there are what you call indigenous cultures around the world that have their part to play in the preservation of the ancient knowledge, Native American, as you say, Native Aboriginal, as you say, in many different parts of the world, look to see the different styles that are all basically giving similar knowledge in a different way to add their own piece to the whole picture, the whole resonant song. Thank you.
Good evening, Bashar.
And a little good day.
Thank you. I'm very glad we're finally meet. This is my first meeting, so to speak, of this kind.
Oh, all right. This is our first one of this kind as well. Novice to novice, I greet you.
Thank you. All I know about this kind of information is what I read in the Czech material.
Czech,
Yes. What specifically struck me in that book, in that material, was what Seth did with Jane Roberts' hand, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I hope you don't find my question impertinent, but it kept going through my mind all the time.
Impertinent?
Yes.
Not at all.
Oh, good.
If it is coming from your heart, it is important, not impertinent.
Oh, that's good. It is coming from my heart.
All right. Proceed.
Could you please show me anything of that kind?
The idea, as perhaps you have to some degree been witnessing, is that there are several things happening with the channel's hand during the course of this communication. What you must understand is this communication is coming to you on many different levels. Not all of it is being translated through the channel's vocal cords. There is direct energy that is being translated through the channel's body, and some of the hand motions are representative of some other levels of the conversation that all of you will then be picking up on through sight as well as sound. Sometimes they are, just as you use the hands of your body for the idea of emphasizing a point, but you must understand that sometimes it is like unto an orchestration, in that there are other things being said, and perhaps while you are listening to the words as they are translating through the channel, you are looking at the motion of the hands, and you are letting down your guard and letting other aspects of the information come through the back door, so to speak. Sometimes the hands are utilized to create an energy gate for the channel to help balance the energy coming through, and more often than not, you will see that in triangular formation, the channel's hands will be often placed in front of the channel's solar plexus, which is the chakra of intention and connection to the future self, which I am in relationship to the channel. I am the channel's future self in that sense. And thus this helps to balance the energy connection between us telepathically, and allows us to strengthen the intention of the flow of information. There are a variety of things going on with the channel's hands that bespeak of another level of communication, and there are other levels of energy communication being given off for which there are no ways to translate. But you are nonetheless receiving different levels of energy, different levels of information, which is being seeded within you, with your permission, of course. And perhaps you will find some of you will come out later when you have let your guard down, your intellect down, in your dreams, or when you are in a creative state, you will all of a sudden find yourself popping with inspiration that may allow you to think back to this communication, this meeting, and you will understand that you have opened up to different levels of information that may come out in what you would call a time-release fashion later when you are in the appropriate state to channel it through yourself. Is this making some sense to you so far?
Yes, it is.
Also, you must understand that there are many different ways of expressing information. Had the channel more ways of expressing it with his body, you may see more levels of the information. There is another civilization that we communicate with in a similar fashion telepathically. This civilization has the ability to change color instantly in their skin texture, and thus through the channeling, their skin is a variety of color shifts all the time, which indicates another level of information that is coming through that to your civilization is invisible because your bodies don't do that. So, to some degree, we trust that this has created some explanation for you, but if you would like some more specificness to this, then you may, if you wish, take us down that avenue with you now, or has this been sufficient?
Well, I think so far it's been sufficient. I have many more questions, but...
Where else would you like to take this idea?
Sorry?
Where else would you like to go with this concept?
Well,
Or is there something else you wanted to discuss?
No, it's just that when you came here,
Yes.
I was focusing on the body.
Yes.
I was focusing on the hands,
Yes.
and the expression on the face, and the shadow on the wall.
All right.
And I was trying to see if I could spot anything for me that is unusual.
And did you feel that in your particular way of observing this interaction that you were capable of discovering something about yourself that was important to you?
No.
Not yet?
No, not yet.
Not at all. Nothing new.
Well, yes, in your words, in what you said.
But not in the shape, not in the body, not in the form, not in the shadow.
No, not just. The mental part, not the physical part.
I see. All right. May I ask you a question? Thank you, I will.
Please do.
What is the most exciting thing to you about physical reality?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
Why, thank you. Then I will leave it to you as homework. For in asking you that question, and in that you find it in your terms difficult, it will, as you ponder this idea, put you in touch with exactly how it is you can get more out of, or glean more, or extract more out of the concept of meaning from physical observation. But I will give you a hint, a clue, and a secret to help you along. Shall I?
Please do.
Oh, all right, I will. No physical experience. Oh, are you paying attention?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, all right, just checking. No physical experience has built-in meaning. All situations are fundamentally neutral, devoid of meaning. The meaning you automatically, oftentimes unconsciously, assign to the situation absolutely and completely determines the effect and the meaning you extract from the situation. So, our clue to you is, when you observe something that you want to get some meaning from, my question really is, more importantly, what meaning do you want to put into it? That's how it works.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Yes, it does. I'll do my homework.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Have
much.
fun with your homework.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good day to you, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Thank you. I have two questions this evening. One is, France has been suspiciously left out of the crop circle or glyph offering.
Well, as we have said, each nation has its own way of expressing and is at its own stage of understanding itself and its own stage of concocting and co-creating what kind of symbolism it will participate in the overall expression. So it is not a matter of being left out. It is simply a matter of timing, appropriateness, of expression, and evolution, and recognition of self. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
And
is it because they have no circles, or do we just not have the communication to know about it?
there have from time to time been a few glyphs, circles as you say, in what you would call the region on your planet you know as France. But that is not the main forte of the expression of that region. I suppose now you want to ask what is.
I was wondering if it had something to do with the nuclear.
It does have a lot right now to do with the idea of their dabbling in the nuclear technologies. Yes, it is to some degree both an impediment to the expression of what they would give to the whole picture, and at the same time, paradoxically, it will actually, ironically, propel them toward being forced by themselves to face certain issues that will put it squarely in their face as to what their unique gift actually is, which they, as a culture, have been resistant to give because it would force them to look at a portion of themselves they have not been willing to look at. Cryptic, yes. But you will see what we mean when they force themselves into a certain kind of corner and then are forced to find a way to break through it. Are you understanding it? There is some similarity to what they may experience on a certain level. Be careful here, you are understanding what we are saying as an analogy, not as a literal crossover, as an analogy. There is some similarity to what they may need to experience as we perceive their energy now. This may change, but as we perceive their energy now, there may be some similarity to what you perceived your Soviet Union experiencing in the destabilization of its social political structure in order for it to move in a different direction. This is also true with what you call your United States of America. There will need to be also in what you call your Japan certain sociological, socioeconomic, political destabilizations so that new systems can be brought into play, put in place, implanted, so that new ideas can grow in a completely different direction, perpendicular to the way they think they are going. Remember the watermelon seed?
Yes.
There is a high amount of pressure from above and below in certain areas on your planet, especially the ones we have named, to force themselves ultimately to move in a new and unknown and unexpected direction wherein they will then really discover their strength, their gift, their merit, their true spirituality. They will, ironically, as we have said, use what may at first appear to be a detriment to actually ultimately boost themselves in that positive direction. But they have not yet crossed that threshold, and so they are still in spiritual turmoil in a certain way. Or shall we just say, in spiritual uncertainty. Does this make some sense to you?
Yes, it does.
And your other subject?
The Knights Templars.
The Knights Templar, yes.
Were they aware of crossroads in their time in history?
Yes. And again, to some degree, although many things, as you may say in your language, became a little bit muddled over time, to some degree they are also a continuation, an offshoot of some factions of the ancient Druidic understanding that stretches all the way back to Atlantean knowledge. But much of it was, in many ways, altered into different formats as different kinds of social, political, and religious phenomenology began to emerge on your planet, and it became all mixed up within some of those expressions, and some of the original information was, in that sense, diluted. You follow? But yes, they were aware of those things. Only very, 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 very few, however, especially in what you call your Middle Ages, very few were truly aware of all the levels of significance that most of you are aware of now. So this is a time, a true time on your planet of revelations and the opening of the storehouses of knowledge. Does it help you?
It does. I have one other quick question.
Oh, what a surprise.
What a surprise. When I said 2, I meant 3.
Yes, I know. That is usually the case.
Why is it when we are in crop circles that our intentions seem to be read and magnified? Is it because of the amplifying quality?
They do function in some senses as focusing devices, and as we have said, as you allow the idea of your energy to resonate, to match the frequency inherent in each glyph, you then put yourself squarely into the communications grid more easily, and you can be more easily read in terms of your intention, and this goes both for the idea of what appears to be your outside reality and other levels, and also you can read yourselves more clearly if you are willing to use the energy and intentions in that direction. But you are more aligned with the overall communication grid of the infinite when you allow yourself to match the frequency that is given by those circles. Yes. Does that answer your question?
It does. We were beginning to wonder if the long-eared weeds really could have ears.
All right, we understand the pun, and in some senses this is true. After all, there are no accidents in symbology.
Thank you.
Perhaps the idea is that the long ears of the wheat are now also an indication that you are extending your senses. You understand?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Like dating you, Bashar.
Good.
I'm glad you flew down to our friend 22 years ago or whatever it was.
All right. Thank you. It was an arrangement and an agreement and a date that we were happy to keep. Especially in that, by doing so, its unfoldment has allowed us the great gift of dreaming all of you into our reality. We thank you.
You're welcome. I have 3 questions, whether they're short or long, is for you to decide.
All right, speak up and be bold so that all may share your gifts with you.
The first is, who or your civilization was involved with a somewhat similar but more laughable situation when I saw what appeared to be a UFO and felt my third or will chakra and then felt laughter afterwards.
All right. The idea is that there are many civilizations that are in contact with your planet at this time. There are many different agendas and intentions that may go along with many of these different civilizations. You will generally find that the ones that each of you may come in contact with in one way, shape, or form will be indicative of your own agendas and your own agreements that you have made, perhaps even prior to this life, and that the contact that may occur in whatever fashion it does occur will have a tendency to evoke your greatest levels of energy, be it joy and ecstasy and laughter, or great terror and fear. The idea is that whatever energy you feel isn't even necessarily the intention of those contacting you, but that by being exposed to the higher frequency, you will then use the higher frequency in whatever direction, more often than not, you are geared and more willing to move in. And in that sense, as you already know on your planet, and it is a truism in that sense that laughter is a great medicine, and laughter is an acceleration of your frequency, a stepping up of your frequency, and so what you were given an indication of is that you were ready to cross a threshold and step your vibration up, to amplify your energy to a new threshold so that you could perceive in a broader range of things. That is the timing of the contact and why such things occur. You follow?
Yes.
And?
Can you say something, if anything, about what the character I call Mr. Green has to do with the crossroads?
Our interpretation of this idea, as we read your energy, would be similar to an archetypal presentation of nature, which doesn't mean it isn't autonomous, doesn't mean it doesn't have its own energy, its own consciousness, its own self-awareness. But archetypal presentations are also born of the collective consciousness of all of you together, creating the world spirit. And out of that world spirit can come individuated expressions of nature being, nature spirit, nature consciousnesses, nature entities. The idea, thus, as we perceive your energy, of what you call the green being, would be one aspect specifically reflective of you and others, but for you, that helps connect you in your unique way to the growing power of nature and the vibration therein that helps you relate to your understanding of how things manifest in a natural way. Does that make some sense for you? So it is like a tutor, a mentor energy for you to get in touch with nature and how manifestation can occur and unfold in your life in a more natural pacing, a more natural expression, so that you don't forget, as all of you are, that you are nature itself as well and not cut off from it, not apart from it. Make some sense?
Yeah.
This entity idea has appeared throughout your history in a variety of ways. And in this context, it could be said to be the expression of the tiller of the soil that knows that the seed must yield growth. And thus, with that certainty, that conviction, and that knowledge, simply becomes lost and becomes one with, without effort, without trying, without struggle, one with the growing green power of your verdant planet. Does that make some sense to you?
Yes.
It is also connected to the concept of fertility, and thus the female counterpart to some degree as well, although that also has a different archetypal expression. But by all means, if that is sufficient, do proceed to part 3.
The third part is about 2 porcupines that I think were unusual, and the crop circles and glyphs that are made are soft on light, but I think in the northern part of the United States or southern Canada here in Saskatchewan, a couple of porcupines were either crushed or otherwise oddly disposed of in the crop circle energy. And I wondered if you could comment on why that specifically happened there.
A, to show that there is a consequence for every action and every place that you are. That this is not just an etheric phenomenon, but a true physiological phenomenon that is to be respected for the power it contains and the power you have access to within yourselves to convert yourselves into a different state. Those animal consciousnesses were willing to participate in this way to show you, A, the body is only a shell, and at the same time, it is a very profound expression of reality. So the polarity, the paradox of both is respect that this is a greater phenomenology than just the physical, but respect the power that it does show in the physical, and respect your own physical presence and prowess as well, as there are consequences to every action, and you must remain perfectly within your integrity and perfectly within your intention and perfectly aligned with your overall holism. Otherwise, there can be, to some degree, side effects that are not necessarily pleasant. Do you understand this concept?
Yes.
Is that a sufficient addressing for you?
You're perfect. Thank you for holding
Thank you.
Thank you for holding up civilizing between your people and ours.
We thank you for your co-participation as well. We are overjoyed to be given the opportunity to play with each and every one of you.
All the formations we live around the world. These are held in our collective consciousness, each one of us,
Yes.
at all times.
Yes.
How best can we access each of these different forms for our evolution?
The ideas that have been shown in terms of the visualization of them is one very strong way, but there are a number of ways. But the idea is, as we have discussed, that taking these things, these shapes, these forms, and creating them to move in resonant ways, such as by the process, perhaps, one way, of spinning, as you were shown, will help open up more attributes and aspects of them, and by literally shifting from one glyph to another in rapid succession in front of your face, will put you in the proper meditative state to become one with the totality of them holographically. We would recommend, although this is not paramount, it is not absolute, but we would recommend that you could, if possible, allow yourself to view each glyph in rapid succession in the order they appeared linearly in time on your planet, building to a crescendo and then starting over again. But that crescendo, just going from what you deem to be the first to the last, building up in that way, well, I'll put it colloquially in your language. Believe me, it will give you quite a rush. It will literally be accelerating you, stepping you up. View them at whatever rate is comfortable for you. Warning: choose your rate carefully. If you go too fast, some of you may get sick. If you get sick, slow the rate down at which you view each glyph in rapid succession flashing before your eyes. Take your time. There is no rush in that sense. Allow yourself to find your own comfortable pace, but by going from beginning to present and adding whatever comes next, you will literally be building in the appropriate sequence of ratio mathematics and stepping yourself up in much the same way that you gear up a machine to be able to handle higher rotations, higher frequencies, and so forth. So that would be one very strong suggestion. We will leave any other suggestions up to your brilliant imagination. Does that satisfy you for now?
Partially.
Oh, all right.
May I ask you this?
Yes.
In the absence of this facility and this opportunity, and also the absence of perhaps even the knowledge of these circles in their correct order, can this be done on the unconscious mind level at an unconscious willingness?
Yes, because it is already being done on that level in that the phenomenology is created from you in the first place.
Correct. And then how do we access that?
How can you ask the question?
Yes, how can we ask questions to our unconscious mind to access that consciousness?
No. Listen. How do you have the capacity to even ask such a question if you are not already accessing it? Do you see the paradox?
Yes, point taken.
So, what that should tell you is that your very ability to ask, how can we access, means you are accessing in the moment that you ask. So, in whatever way, shape, and form your imagination makes it appear that you are accessing it, and it doesn't necessarily have to come with pictures, just the knowledge that to conceive is to perceive, then you can simply know that in the moment it dawns on you that such a concept is possible, The only reason it would be possible for you to have such a concept is that at that moment you must be doing the very thing you are wondering if you can do. The answer is in the question. So when you ask the question, and you have that little bent over question mark at the end, straighten it into an exclamation point, and make the question its own answer, by knowing that you must already be doing it, you have conceived of the possibility of doing it. You cannot perceive what you do not already contain. And the state of knowingness is enough to create the effect in your life that you are accessing the knowledge, even though you may not necessarily always have an intellectual comprehension that you are doing so at that moment. Just knowing it is enough, because your knowing it will affect how you behave, and your behavior will resonate into your reality to create a reflection that will show you you know it by the things that start happening synchronistically in your life. Does this make some sense to you as a mechanistic tool?
Yes, it does.
Please understand that all these things we are discussing are not philosophical points of view. We are talking physics. So there will be a physical effect just in knowing that you know what you know when you need to know it. Does this make some sense to you then?
Yes, it does.
Why thank you for your willingness to know that it is.
Thank you very much indeed.
There will be but a brief moment of time remaining for this particular communication. Continue.
Good day.
And to you, good day.
That was a question about our indivisibility.
Speak up and be bold.
And probably your unity.
Speak up and be bold. You are not being perceived completely.
Okay. The problem is that things are individual, and you seem to be very much united.
Yes.
And the other problem is there seems to be some kind of faith in timing and things like that. And so we have our own choice to make decisions, our own capability to make decisions in that sense.
Yes, you always have choice. You always have free will, even though many of the choices that may be made may evoke certain consequences in your reality that you could call predestined, because you have set certain things in motion. That degree of destiny may occur for a time as a theme playing out, but you always still have choice as to how to go through that theme, and the destiny was still created originally from the choices that you made. Make sense?
Almost.
All right.
I have a problem for myself.
Yes.
I could see sometimes frictions that occur a few months later in life, and I wonder if you have explanations or something like that.
Define more clearly.
It's like a dream.
Yes.
Later,
Do you mean like precognition?
yes.
Yes. Well, that can have a number of reasons for existing.
But then, as it's happening,
Yes.
I recognize that it's fast, and I can tell how it goes on.
Yes. Well, this is natural. And as more and more and more of you expand, you will experience more slippages in space and time. And you will be able to extend your senses into what you call past and future ideas and experiences of precognition and psychic functioning and deja vu, and all these different ideas will become more commonplace as you experience the synchronistic expression in linear time that everything is all one thing. But everything being one thing can only be experienced in certain ways in a linear physical reality, such as the type of things you are talking about. There are many ways that you create this mechanism to work in physical reality. In dream state, sometimes what you will do, just again to speak colloquially, Doesn't mean that we are describing the mechanism precisely, but just to use your language. When you dream, many times you go out of body, into another dimension, another realm. In that realm, you may literally take a moment to design what's going to happen next in your physical life. You will create a blueprint for what you are going to do the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, to some degree. Then when you wake up in your physical body, you will have to some degree perhaps forgotten that you created that plan. But perhaps then when you arrive at that point in time when the plan, the blueprint begins to unfold, you will trigger a little bit of a memory that you did already plan this out, and that in some senses you are now living out what you planned, and so you get this sense that this perhaps has already been seen, or you have already lived it before, or some other kind of experience or sensation that may go along with it. This is one mechanism that is utilized by many of you that creates this sensation. But again, remember, there is no such thing, really, as a prediction of the future. There is only a sensing of the energy that exists at the present, and that when you recognize the energy that exists at the present, sometimes that energy may have a tendency, if it doesn't change direction, if it's got a lot of momentum behind it, it may have a tendency to unfold in a very specific way. If it doesn't change, you could then say, well, the prediction came true. But understand, you are not reading the future. You are only reading what was most likely to unfold from the present as it existed in that state. Sometimes, making such a reading, making such a prediction, will add different energy to the present and actually render the prediction obsolete. And that is why many such predictions don't come true. It doesn't mean that the original prediction or the original psychic sensing was not accurate, but it may mean that the psychic sensing in and of itself rendered itself ineffective and obsolete by changing the energy that it sends. Unless it has a great deal of momentum and inertia behind it, an event is capable of being changed by your intention, by your input, by your attitude about what you think about what you have sensed may be coming up for you. But those things that you allow to unfold in the way that you have set them up, they can be used as markers for you to let you know that the fact that you are aware now that you may have foreseen this or laid it out for yourself, and now you're consciously aware that there's an overlap, a doubling up, a deja vu, may be your way of letting yourself know that this means you are now more conscious of the fact that you create your reality. And therefore you are more in touch with the fact that you can create your reality the way you want it to be. That you actually have more freedom to choose, even though all of a sudden it seems that the experience makes you feel like destiny is unfolding. This is again the paradox in this situation. An experience that may feel like predestination is actually an experience to give you an understanding that you have more capability of making your life to be what you want it to be. And that's how you can use this experience. Is this making some sense to you?
I understand it completely.
Oh,
I can actually change the destiny during the
yes.
And
very good.
It's difficult to retrieve this destiny.
That's all right.
You're the first time who has answered this question for me. Thank you very much.
And another.
Greetings, Bashar.
And to you, good sir.
Emira speaking. Thank you for being here.
Again, I am not there, but thank you for the sentiment.
And I'm bringing the questions back to this area, the Wiltshire ley line area.
All right.
Particularly in relation to Stonehenge.
Yes.
I would like to ask you, as for 20 months now, a group of 26 of us have meditated regularly on the full moons within there.
Oh, all right. How diligent of you.
And we have perceived it to be not just access to this galaxy, but an intergalactic
Yes, as we have said, dimensional gateways to all that is.
And I would like very much if you could offer some of your considered opinions and advice on the contemporary use of this sacred vortex.
All right. Thank you. Again, very strongly, if each and every one that will position themselves relative to one of the standing stones will, in a sense, adopt a stone and allow a stone to adopt them so that you make a living version of Stonehenge. Do you understand? Recreate it in its original form to the best of your ability. Make a living counterpart.
Right.
As close as you can to it. And then, whatever other aspect of the ritual you wish to do, it would also be of great assistance. And there are two ways to do this. To allow yourself to imagine or feel or visualize that there is an energy moving around the ring in a counterclockwise direction. A blue-white electromagnetic light moving through each individual in a counterclockwise direction. You follow?
Yes, I do.
Now, you can add to this in a multitude of ways to, as you say, amp it up, amplify it. Not only can you envision one movement of energy going around in that way, but the idea is that as it goes around, you can, as it comes to each individual, imagine that it goes around each individual before going on to the next in the same direction. You follow?
I do.
Now, pay attention because there's more. You can amp it up even further by imagining this, if you can hold on to it, that there is a contrary motion of energy in the opposite direction simultaneously. So that you have both the clock and counterclockwise movement of energy moving around individuals in this way, 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 in this way. And make that as rapid as you feel comfortable with making it. By doing this, then imagining that what you are creating is a column of blue-white light extending infinitely above and infinitely below, and that you are the wall, a circlet, a bracelet, a ring around this column, a magnifying conductor, a conductor of this energy. You will then, each individually, whoever is participating, be able to siphon off from that one nodal point any and all bits of different kinds of information that will be, whatever it is your intention is focused to, as a switch, as a valve, as a conduit at that moment in your participation. Does this make some sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Begin with that simple task and see then how you might be inspired to compound it and amplify it on your own with your own discussions about how you feel it can be amplified or how you feel you wish to alter in your imagination your participation in that kind of energy conduit creation.
Yes, thank you. You've been very much actually bringing each planet into connection within the henge.
But the idea to understand is that if you create that nodal point, everything, each planet, each dimension, each realm, each reality, each person, everything, all that is there.
Yes.
Automatically, again, holographically, everything is everywhere, everything is one thing. Every moment that you perceive to be a different moment in time is the same one moment from a different point of view.
Yes.
That is what you get by being totally here and now. And that idea, that ritual, and any other your imagination would care to spiral up from its depth, will help you lock in to that frequency of all that is. And remember, it all has to do with what? Excitement and unconditional love.
Yes.
Does that help you?
Yes, very much, thank you. And if I could just ask about the crystals at this point in time.
Again, they are a trigger. Like anything, The power is within you, but crystals are a very, very refined way of expressing the idea of, shall we say, frozen energy. They are very close to the original energy pattern that created them, and thus they are a very refined tool and a trigger to use to reflect to yourself your ability to tap into certain frequencies of amplification within your being based on whatever crystalline form you choose to identify with at any given moment. So they function as amplifiers and triggers for each and every one of you based on the fact that they function as mirrors for how much, to what degree, to what capacity you are willing to allow yourself to be expressed in your reality. Does this make some sense?
Very much, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
At this timing, we will then once again extend to each and every one of you our deepest and most heartfelt appreciation for allowing us to communicate through this gate with you in this way at this time, and for allowing us to experience the gift of all of your unique reflections and points of view. We thank you and recognize that we will be reconnecting, reestablishing a link in what you call the next day of coming of your time, and in that sense, we will enjoy once again communicating to each and every one of you who choose to participate therein our unconditional love, our excitement to each and every one of you, and we thank you for allowing us to dream you into our reality and for dreaming us into your own, and for co-creating together a third reality, a third dream in which one day, someday, we may, in what you call your near future, interact in a more face-to-face and equal manner when you allow yourselves to discover more and more of who it is you know you deserve to be. Our unconditional love once again, thank you, and good day.